And so in general, if you're trying to help somebody else, a loved one, in a financially abusive relationship, I would say to listen to them and support them in the way that they're asking you to support.
Thank you for joining us as we talk about financial abuse today. It's an important topic, and I have an expert with me. This is Rebecca Green Neale. She's a family law attorney based in Massachusetts, and she does education on financial abuse and other related topics, and she has agreed to share some of her expertise with us. Rebecca, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting this information out there. I'm, of course, Justin Pritchard. I'm a certified financial planner. I'm based in Colorado, and I work with people all over the US. So, Rebecca, let's start with a pretty basic question, I guess, is what is financial abuse?
Sure. So the hallmarks of financial abuse are threefold: economic control, economic exploitation, and interference with employment. Okay, and so the hallmarks of those are, so economic exploitation is something that we're all very familiar with. It's just a fancy word for saying, stealing someone's identity, stealing their property, destroying their property, things along that lines. Economic control is when someone is in a relationship and their partner is restricting their access to their own money, whether they are married and it's marital funds, family funds, and they can't get access to it, or they could be controlling by restricting their information about what the family assets are. So maybe somebody doesn't know what their partner makes or how much is in the bank account, but their partner still gives them an allowance. And tells them this is how much you can spend on groceries, something really essential that you need to buy, but it's not a joint decision. It's the partner is saying this is how much you can spend, but it's not telling the person how much is in the bank account or how much is being earned, and so they can't make that, and so they're not being a part of that decision. And the third one is a little more. People don't know so much about it. It doesn't occur to them off the top of their head, but interference with employment is a hallmark of financial abuse, because you see it happening where maybe somebody is gainfully employed, but their partner calls them 10 times during their shift or shows up randomly at work and interferes to the point where their boss starts having to talk to them. Hey, he can't just stop by randomly. And, the victim is saying, hey, I don't have any control over this. And what happens is that person is then really on the ropes at work. Maybe their partner has interfered with their ability to get transportation to work. So their car is chronically in need of repair and it never gets fixed. Some partners slash tires, or interferes with childcare. Maybe there is a partner who stays at home, but all of a sudden says, I'm not staying home today, but it's your work day, right? And so somebody can't go to work that day because there's no safe childcare. This is really common, but it's not always identified as abusive or economically abusive behavior, but it really undermines somebody's ability to get and maintain a job.
Right, so there's almost some sabotage happening. They're not going to get promotions. They might even get terminated because there's problems happening at work.
Absolutely. And it also happens on the flip side where a partner says, no, I don't want you to work. I want you to stay home and take care of the kids. Or I don't want you to work because, people make up all sorts of things. They think they think a victim is too flirtatious with people at work or something. They get jealous and they say, I don't want you to go to work. And when somebody is unable to work, it really restricts their ability to make money and get a new job when they do leave that relationship, if they do leave it.
Right, and that's an important point, right? Your skills are rusty or your resume isn't as, polished as it might be because you've had to deal with this abuse.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And your references are going to maybe hesitate about recommending you because you're unreliable. Is it you that's unreliable, or is it because of the relationship you were in, this person undermined your reliability?
Gotcha. So these are things that make it really difficult to, I guess, have autonomy just in the workplace, and then your own shopping autonomy, I guess. Is there any indication of what's like behind this?
Well, abuse is about power and control.
Mhm.
It's about controlling somebody else. So the abusive partner is trying to keep somebody in their life. And so 1 in 4 women experience domestic violence. And of those women who experience domestic violence, over 90% of them say that the biggest reason why they were prevented from leaving that relationship was financial.
Yeah.
And so if there is actual physical violence, then the financial abuse is going to come hand in hand with that, because it's about control and keeping that person in the relationship. And financially controlling them is an extraordinarily effective way to keep them there. Can you have a financially abusive relationship that doesn't involve physical violence? Absolutely. That again is about control, and keeping that person in their life, because their options are limited.
Yeah, and just to get more explicit, right? So if you don't have control of your own money and you don't have great employment, you're not going to get a vehicle to be able to go do things on your own, live on your own. You're going to have a hard time getting housing. You got to pay that deposit. You might need references and credit checks. Just a lot of things get more difficult after that type of situation, right?
Absolutely. Your credit gets annihilated. Your employment history is spotty. Taxes are another huge issue I see time and time again with my clients is when they're in a financially controlling situation, maybe taxes haven't been filed in years. Why? Because their spouse says, I'm going to get to it, and then never gets to it. Maybe the taxes have been filed, but they don't disclose all of the under the table income. And so then my client feels as though, they've been caught in a web of deceit, and so taxes, and when taxes haven't been filed, then it feels like if you get a job, your taxes are going to be garnished because of something that somebody else did, so there's a lot going on. There's a lot to untangle, and it's usually particular to that person as to what exactly has been tangled up.
Yeah, now we've been talking about married couples or partners, romantic partners. Are there other relationships or situations that you see this a lot in, or is it mostly those types of romantic relationships?
Well, so as a divorce lawyer, this is where I have most of my experience, but I have read up on, abusive family members, who, parents and children can have abusive relationships there, where they tie, love and affection in with money. If you loved me, you'd give me money to do X, Y, and Z kind of things, where a parent or a child becomes dependent financially on another person, and ties it up in this relationship. I have seen, that's not my area of working with clients, but I do see people discussing that and having some challenges in that regard. Actually, in my old job, I have seen where I used to work at a legal aid, and I helped people who had a variety of issues. I have seen where parents have signed loans in their children's names, took the money, and their children never knew about it until they check their credit report and they see there's a loan defaulted in their name, and they say, where did this loan come from? They request the loan origination documents, and they see that's not my signature, that's my mother's signature.
Mm-hmm.
So that's financial abuse. I mean, that's fraud, right? Yeah. And then it's tangled up in this abusive relationship, this financially abusive relationship.
Yeah, yeah, and I should mention, so Rebecca has done a lot of research on this topic and a lot of resources out there. So keep your eye on her for more information. You know, you might be able to find some good stuff. Um, so this question might be easier said than done, but how do you avoid or prevent financial abuse in your own relationships?
Yeah, it absolutely easier said than done, right? So we can look into somebody else's relationship and say, this is what you got to do, X, Y, and Z, you know. But what I tell folks who are struggling because they have a loved one in a challenging abusive relationship is I ask them to think about, have you ever had a job that you hated and you just loathed going to that job and you would vent about that job to people?
Mhm.
And people would say, all you have to do is X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And you'd say, oh, I can't do that because of A, B, and C reason, you know? I think that people can understand when you couch it in terms of like, when you had a job you hated, what did other people do to help you get out of that job that you hated? You know, how did they support you? They listened. They were there for you when you tried something that maybe wasn't successful. They listened to your ideas. They helped you in the way that you asked to be helped instead of just giving you unsolicited advice. And so in general, if you're trying to help somebody else, a loved one, in a financially abusive relationship, I would say to listen to them and support them in the way that they're asking you to support. In a very concrete way, though, if this person feels unsafe, having an ally who doesn't live with them can be extraordinarily useful, because the first thing that somebody in a financially abusive relationship should be doing is to gather information about their finances. This important information, getting a credit report, getting their bank statements if they have joint accounts, finding out, you know, what's in their retirement accounts. This kind of information is really important. But if you're in an abusive relationship that involves physical violence, that person might be monitoring your computer usage. Yeah. So your friend or family member can be a really great resource by allowing you to use their computer, okay? Or allowing you to use their address if you need to receive something in the mail from the credit bureaus, right? So you can get your credit report for free from all three credit bureaus, right? But you need to be able to use a computer and get that securely, or you can mail something to them and they will mail it to you to your address. But for some people, that's just not an option. So it's extraordinarily useful to be able to use somebody else's address. If you're able to open up your own individual bank account, you might want to use your friend, your family member's address for that bank account. That's a really concrete way that you can help your friend, and that's a really concrete way that you can help yourself if you're in that scenario.
Yes, that's great. That's great. You know, I'm thinking of concrete stuff, again, easier said than done, but maybe knowing what you're signing, if it's, you know, safe to demand that you can read through things. Is that, you know, something that's also important?
Sure. Yes. Though, yes, but it's not always so easy, you know. I have clients who signed mortgages, like refinances and HELOCs, because they co-own the house, right? But then once the money's dispersed, they don't know what happened to it. You know, they're told this is what we have to do in order to pay our bills, you know. Yeah, once you can have more information about what you have, then you can start to take control of your finances. And not everybody who doesn't have information about their finances is in an abusive relationship. You can test the waters and start to try to have a healthier conversation with your spouse or your partner about money and see, is that person going to come to the table and make financial decisions with you? Are they going to start disclosing this really important information and work with you? And then you can gauge whether you'll be able to gain control together, or whether you're going to have to gain control by getting that person out of your financial life.
So if they're dragging their heels, it's not looking good in that type of situation.
Absolutely.
We may have already talked about this a little, and to whatever degree we want to get into it, but as far as getting out of this situation, then sounds like some initial steps, or maybe finding those resources and support networks. Anything else, or is that kind of the first big steps?
Yeah, that's a big step. I mean, if you have access to online resources, there are some resources called the Purple Purse Project with the Allstate Foundation, and there are increasing numbers of financial abuse related information out there. That does require having access to a computer that's not monitored. Mm-hmm. You may want to do that from work if you have a work computer. That would allow you to do it. You may want to ask your friend to look into, how can I do X, Y, and Z? Can we figure this out? I actually do have clients whose friends have facilitated hiring me for the client because that client's movements were so monitored. And then we were able to have phone calls, but their friends were doing a lot of this like background legwork that was required to, push the ball forward. And absolutely, if you need to get a lawyer involved, I highly recommend hiring somebody with domestic violence experience so that they understand that this is not a totally linear process and that you're going to go forward, you're going to go back a little, you're going to go forward, you're going to go back. It's not like boom, 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 boom. Everything is solved. You're going to move forward and then you're going to see a roadblock, and then you're going to have to address that roadblock or decide that you can't address it and put it to the side and then move on, because there's so many issues that could be tangled up in there. Like I said, taxes, credit score, credit history, fraud, theft, divorce, child support, there's so much entangled up in there. Employment issues. Yeah.
So you are getting to my next question somehow. And I guess we will stress that you are an attorney, but you're not anybody's attorney that's watching this. They have to contract with you. You're also in a different state probably than many people. But what are, and I guess the question is, do people want to pursue legal remedies? Is this, a criminal act in some cases? Is there anything they can do? Or is it just, the best revenge is a life well lived? What would you say to all that?
All of that. Okay. So, every situation is different. So it's always up to the victim or the survivor as to what they want to do. For some folks, they just want to walk away, and the best revenge is a life well lived. Absolutely. For some folks, they can't walk away because they have these unpaid taxes that are going to be garnished from their next paycheck, right? Or student loan that is in default because they weren't able to rehabilitate it. And that's going to get garnished, so they need to address the really pressing issues. And for that, they should seek expert advice. They should seek legal advice if they need to. For the taxes, I absolutely recommend looking into the legal remedies available because there are several. And you can consult with a tax attorney on that. You can go to your state's legal aid website. The legal aid websites that I have seen, they're state by state, and they have some amazingly helpful information and resources available. Particularly when it comes to survivors of domestic violence, the financial abuse information is a bit scant online, but what you can do is you break it down into the different issues of taxes or credit repair. And if you're looking up credit repair as opposed to financial abuse, you're going to find more information in that regard. And your legal aid websites are going to have information on eviction defense. Like if you're, having trouble with your housing, they're going to have information on employment. if you're having trouble with your employment. They're going to have information on bankruptcy, on credit issues, if you're being sued by a creditor. And so that's the first place I would look if you have any of those issues going on. If there's a criminal issue, I would reach out to your local police department for some assistance, and your local domestic violence hotline for some assistance in navigating that as well.
Yeah, got you. So the rest of these are after you're safe, after the fact, work on rebuilding the credit and dealing with the taxes. Okay, and then do you have any tips on if somebody was going to spot this happening in somebody else's relationship? Very, kind of dangerous territory there, but on how to help.
Yeah, it is tricky. Absolutely. It's always tricky to offer unsolicited advice, right? I think that one of the best things that somebody can do to help anyone in a financially abusive relationship or an abusive relationship in general is to not give up on that person. Part of this control, part of abuse is about isolating that person. And just like when we talk about employment sabotage, with all the constant phone calls at work or being unreliable and late all the time, that reflects on the person, right? On the employee. It reflects poorly on them. That same kind of thing happens with their friends. Okay, so if the abuser is restricting somebody's access to their friends or making them look like a flake or unreliable, their friends are going to start to say, I give up. I can't help you. I tried to help you. You wouldn't listen to me. I think that the number one thing you can do for your friend or your loved one is to not give up, to show up, to listen, and be there for them.
Yes, that's awesome. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, you're gonna feel like your friend's a flake, and that's that's good advice. So I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I mean, we've talked about some good resources and tips. I mean, are there other topics that you think people should look into or other places to go for information about this?
Absolutely. So I talked about the Allstate Purple Purse Project. They have some resources. There's also the National Domestic Violence Hotline, which is at thehotline.org. Again, that's if you have a safe computer. There's also something called the Independence Project, and it's at nnedv.org. And that gives grants, very small grants, to folks who need a little bit of cash to help them get out of their situation. Maybe it's a security deposit, right? Maybe it's fixing their car. And sometimes that $500 is going to be so critical. So that's the Independence Project. The Purple Purse Project is at purplepurse.com.
Cool. Good. These are great, Rebecca. Thank you.
So happy to help.
Yeah. Anything else you'd add before we wrap it up?
You've got the best of what I have to offer to folks who are trying to get out of this situation and trying to help their friends and their family. But it's always, my phone is on. I would say my door is open, but not on the web.
Yes.
My site does have some resources for folks, but the hotline.org, purplepurse.com, they have much more in terms of resources for survivors than I do have on my site. But if you want to visit my site, it's at bedfordfamilylawyer.com.
Excellent. And we'll have that in the notes. And thank you so much, Rebecca Green Neale.
Thanks.